Okay, welcome back. As we are joined by so many wonderful people this Motzai Shabbos, all coming with the united desire to learn Torahs Hashem. V'yasu chulam aguda achas lasois v'tzayin, to do the will of Hashem. It's wonderful to have everybody as we are holding 2 lines from the bottom of Daf Lamed Amud Beis. There are 3 levels of wine. Yayin Nesech, wine that could have been used for a libation, is Asur B'Hana, and since it could have been used for a libation, that means that it was used for Avoda Zara, so it has a din like Zivchei Mesim, and therefore it's Metame Ba'oyel, under the same roof, or Metame Tumah Chamura, Bekazayas, with the amount of wine that could displace an olive in a container. It has the din like a corpse. Stam Yainam, if it's wine that was bought from a idolater, we don't know if it was used for worship. Asabana, because it could have been used for worship, it's asabana, but since it's not definitely takruvas avodah zara, it's not doesn't have a din of zifrei mesim, and therefore umetame tumas mashkim b'revius. Therefore, it doesn't have any tumah of its own at all. Rather, it's like regular liquids that is susceptible to contamination if it's the share of a revius. Hamafkid yeinoi eitzel oivik kechavim. If Shelley deposits his wine by a pagan, then it's forbidden to drink it and it's permitted to benefit from. Now that's a little bit, it's a little bit puzzling. If you deposit your fruit by a guy, you have to worry that he might have switched it, and if it's a Shemitah year, he might have switched it for his fruit, which has Kedusha Shvias, so you have to be noig with it with Kedusha Shvias, or you have to be noig, even though you put by him tithe produce, you have to be noig meiser, because he holds that even the produce of a guy is chai, because ein kinyan la'akum la'afkia, to free the land from its chiyuv. So you see that we're worried that the guy might have switched it. So if he might have switched it, then it should be Asur B'Hana also, like regular Stam Yayin. Says the Gemara, no kigan sheyichad like Keren Zavius. When Shelley left the wine by Ike, the pagan, Ike gave him a corner of the house and he gave him a key. Says the Gemara, well, if he gave him a key, then it should be permitted to drink from it too. It should be permitted for drinking too. Rabbi Yochanan visited the city of Parvad. He knew that Bar Kapara lived in Parvad. So he says, does anybody know a teaching of Bar Kapara? So Tanule Rabbi Tanchum in Parvad, if you deposit wine by a guy, and he was yichud like Keren Zavius, mutter b'shtiyah, you're allowed to drink it. So Rabbi Yochanan was very pleased. Kari alei, he said about this, mekayim sheyipa la'etz, the place that the tree falls, where the tzaddik falls, sham yehu, that's where he is. So what do you mean that's where he is? He's in the yeshiva Shamayla. Sham yehu, so what does that mean? Here lies his fruits. You'll be able to find his teachings. But the bottom line is, it says that it's mutter b'shtiyah. So why does it say that if Shelley leaves it by him, it's mutter b'hana, but it's asur b'shtiyah? Says the Gemara, Amar Reb Zera loikasha Reb Eliezer Rabbanan. This is a machlokes Reb Eliezer and Rabbanan. The Tanya echad aloikeach ve'echad aseicher bayis b'chatzera shaloi v'kechavim. Somebody buys or rents a house in the courtyard of a guy, and he stores in it wine, and the key or the seal is in the hands of Yisrael. Rabbi Elazar matir, Rabbi Elazar says you're allowed to drink it. The Chacham are afraid that the guy picked the lock and he asks it. So the teaching we had earlier, Asa B'Shtiyah Mutabah, no, that's going according to the Chachamim. Rab Chia B'Reid Rab Chia Bar Nachmani Rav Chisda Amar Rav. Rab Chia B'Reid Rab Chia Bar Nachmani said in the name of Rav Chisda, in the name of Rav. V'Yimur Lo Am Rav Chisda Amar Ziri. Others say Rav Chisda said in the name of Ziri. V'Amri Lo Am Rav Chisda Amar Li'Abba Bar Chama Haki Amar Ziri. Now look how many lines we learned throughout the ages just on transmission. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3.5 lines just on the Messiah. Because the Gemara takes very seriously the accuracy of the Messiah. And the Gemara says that the halacha is lekula like Rebbe Eliezer. Halach Rebbe Eliezer, we're not afraid that the lock was picked and the wine is mutter. Amar Rebbe Eliezer, hakol mishtamer b'chosem echad. You know, we sometimes we need the chumrah of a chosem b'sei chosem, a seal within a seal. But Amar Rebbe Eliezer, hakol mishtamer b'chosem echad. Most things, it's enough. I'll take some ice also. Thank you very much. Most things, it's enough one seal. Chutz min hayayim, except for wine, she'ein mishtamer b'chosem echad. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, afilu yayim mishtamer b'chosem echad. Even wine is enough with one seal. However, v'loi pligi. Haka Rabbi Eliezer, according to Rabbi Eliezer, who says it's mutter, so if, according to Rabbi Eliezer, that it's mutter, it's enough one seal. Haka Rabbanan, according to Rabbanan, that says it's aser, then you need 2 seals. Thank you. Ikadam, right? Amar Rabbi Eliezer, akol mishtamer b'chosem b'sei chosem. Everything is enough, a seal within a seal. Chutz min hayayin, she'ein mishtamer b'chosem b'sei chosem. It's not even enough, a seal within a seal. We'll see that will be going according to the sheet of the Chachamim. Rabbi Yochanan amar afilu yayin mishtamer b'chosem b'sei chosem, v'travaya k'Rabbanan. They're both going according to Rabbanan. Ma'asavar, where the Rabbanan say that it's no good. Klik pligi Rabbanan alei Rabbi Eliezer. That's only with his one chosem. B'chosem echad. Avol b'chosem b'sei chosem sharu. A seal within a seal is permitted. Or ma'asavar, when the Rabbanan say that it's no good, it's even with a chosem b'sei chosem. Afilu chosem b'sei chosem asri. Now, what does it mean, a seal within a seal? Heichi dami chosem b'sei chosem. So we're going to have several examples of what it means, a chosem b'sei chosem. If Agna, now here we're going to be geiris, the gears of Rashi. Agna apuma de chavita, not dipuma. Agna apuma de chavita. If you take a bowl and you put it on the mouth of the barrel, shrika, and you sealed the bowl to the barrel, and then v'chasima, and then you put on a seal upon it, that's a chosem b'sei chosem. Have a chosem b'sei chosem. V'iloi, but if not, loi, not. You notice that sometimes kedem pressurizes the cap. So that pressurized cap is considered a seal. And that's based on this next Gemara. Dikula umihadik. If there's a basket that's tightened onto the top of the barrel, and then there's a seal on the basket, have a chosem b'sei chosem. Loi mahadik, but if it wasn't tightened, then lo have a chosem b'sei chosem. That's only one chosem. Now, noid b'diskaya. If you have a skin flagon that's tied, and it's put in a suitcase that's also sealed. Chasim is pivlamata if the spout of the flagon was towards the bottom of the suitcase, then have a chaysim b'sei chaysim. Pivlamala, but if it was facing upward towards the top of the suitcase, that's lo have a chaysim b'sei chaysim. However, v'chi kayif pumav legav, if let's say you tied the flask and then you pushed down that tie and then you tied it again, v'chasim v'tzayah v'chasim, that's have a chasim b'sei chasim. That's a seal within a seal. Now, what about the wine of kusim? Now, kusim, they don't do yayin nesach, but they're not makbid that a guy shouldn't touch their wine. So yayin shel ayin kushi aser mipnei bira sarika, because ayin kushi was a town of Kusim. It's aser mipnei bira sarika because of its proximity to the Goyish town Bira Sarika. V'shel Barkasa, city of Barkasa of Kusim, aser mipnei kfar parshai because of its proximity to idolatrous kfar parshai. V'shel Zagdor aser mipnei kfar shalom because of its proximity to kfar shalom. However, they then changed their mind to say that if it's a sealed cask, then the kusi doesn't let the guy touch it because he's worried that then a yid won't buy it. If they're open, asuras, because if they're open, kusi is using it for himself and he's not makbid on the guy touching it. Stuma is mutaras, but if it's sealed, it's mutter. So the Gemara says, "Meikar my saver will be safe my saver." What they hold in the beginning and what they hold at the end. Meikar saver ain't kusi makbid al magai v'kacham. The kusi is not makbid of a guy touching it. Loishna p'susais v'loishna snumas. Makes no difference if it was open or sealed. Lebesayv saver kiloi kapid apsuchais. They're not makbid if it's open, because that's for themselves and they don't mind. Stuma is makbid kapid. But if it's sealed, they're makbid. So the Gemara now has a problem with that. Ustumates mutares. If it's sealed, is it mutter? Or Ramini, we learned, as we turn to Daf Lamed Aleph from the base, Hasheileach chavya shel yayin biyad kusi. If you send a barrel of wine in the hand of a kusi, or v'shel tzir v'shel muryas biyadoi v'kechavim, or tzir brine, or fish fat in the hands of a guy, im makir chaysamai usasamai, if the recipient recognizes the seal that it wasn't tampered with, it's mutter. Im lav, but if not, it's awesome. So you see over here that a barrel of wine in the hand of kusi, even though it's sealed, they're not makbid that a guy should touch it. Reb Zeira like kasha kan be'ir kan b'derech. The Gemara thinks that where is a kusi worried about the guy touching a sealed one? That's in the city. But on the road, the kusi is not makbid because he doesn't think anybody is going to see it being touched on the road. So the Gemara says, how is ever a sealed barrel okay with a kusi? You have to transport it. So when it was transported, it maybe wasn't makbid that a guy should touch it. Maskv Yemim, midei hanach de'ir, those that were in the city, loy b'derech also, weren't they transported? Says the Gemara, well, there is a time that a sealed barrel is permitted by a kusi. and that's during the pressing season. Because during the pressing season, where there's a lot of traffic going back and forth, the kusi is makbid that nobody should touch it if it's sealed, even on the road. Al Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Bein Agita Shaninu, it's talked about the pressing season. Came in the Kule Alma Apre, since everybody is going back and forth, Mirsas, he's afraid for a guy to touch it, even on the road. Because Amar, he says, Hashdi Chazali, if the Yid sees the guy touching it, Mipsali, I would lose it. Now, I dashed through the fact that if your brine or your fish fat is a hand of the Ovid Kechavim. Now, what are we worried about the brine or the fish fat? Your brine, which is from a kosher fish, is better than the brine from a non-kosher fish. So if you don't recognize the seal, you're afraid that he might have switched it. Now the murius, the fat of a fish, is very expensive. And therefore we're afraid that he might have removed some fat and replaced it with wine, because it's more expensive than the wine. So those are the two worries by Tzir and Murius. So now the Gemara, I know that Dr. Black was thinking about this. What about beer? What about beer? I see Shelley was thinking about it too. So Imar, Mibnei ma osru shecher shel ovid kechavim. Why did they ask a beer of a pagan? So the Gemara says one of two reasons. Rami bar Chama Amar Reb Yitzchak mishum chasnas. Assimilation. Because if we're going to buy a beer, we might have a pint with them. You sit down to have a pint. First of all, you sit down, 1 pint, 2 pints, and then in your giddy state, you notice his daughter. It's already no good. No good. Rav Nachman Amar Mishum Gilui. The reason is because of it being exposed to snakes. Says Gemara, Gilui Demai, Ilay Magilui Denizaisa. If it's the brewing vat while it's brewing, and not Nami Maglin, we leave that out in the open because while it's brewing, the snake won't drink from it. Vela de Chavita, when it's in its cask, and not Nami Maglin, they don't drink beer. Says Gemara, no, the problem is because before they make the beer, they leave the water out in the night. Says the Gemara, but if that's the case, then aged beer should be permitted, because venom doesn't allow something to age. Aged beer should be permitted. Rav Yoshin mutter, if wine is aged, it's mutter, because the venom doesn't let it age. Hichmitz, if it became vinegar mutter, because it doesn't allow it to become vinegar. You're right, says, well, you're right. Really, aged beer should be permitted, but they made a decree, aged atu new beer. Now, when Rav Papa went to buy beer in a Goyish bar, mapikin leila above the chanusa, he would ask them to bring it outside of the store, and then vishasi. In other words, he was worried about assimilation, and therefore he didn't go into the store. Rav Achai ma'aseh leila beisa vishasi. Rav Achai was more makbid on assimilation, and he didn't drink it till he brought it home. V'travaya mishum chasnas. Rav Achai ovid hachart, and Rav Achai ovid hachart yiserta. He made even a bigger distance that he didn't drink it until he got home. Now, telling you, Rabbi Say, we shouldn't take it for granted the way we start a new week. You know, when it became the practice to make a Motzei Shabbos learning father and son program, the idea is to start the new week with such a beautiful way. To start the new week with learning two Blat Gemara, it bodes very well for the new week. Says the Gemara, says the Gemara, Rav Shmuel Bar Bisna, Ikla L'Margavan. He visited the town of Margavan. Now, unfortunately, the town of Margavan were suspected that the Jews weren't makbid on buying wine from the Goyim. They weren't makbid on stam yain. So Aisei Chamra, so they brought him wine, v'lo yishtei, he wouldn't drink it. Aisei Shikra v'lo yishtei, they brought him beer and he also wouldn't drink it. Now the beer is a problem. I can understand why he wouldn't drink the wine, because they bought stam yayin from a guy. So therefore, Bishlai Mechamra Mishum Shimtza, because of the suspicion that they brought it from a guy. But Shikra Mishamai, what's the problem with the beer? The only problem is because of chasnas, but he's buying it from a Jew. There's no problem of assimilation to the Jew. Says the Gemara, Mishum Shimtza de Shimtza. Here it was a suspicion of a suspicion. In other words, he didn't want to buy it from beer from the Jew of Margavan, because then people might come to buy wine from the Jew of Margavan, and that wine could have been bought from a guy, stam yain. Amar Rav, Hai Shichra de Arma Shari, the beer of a guy is permitted, but v'chia bari loy nishtei minei. But here my son shouldn't drink it. Now that's puzzling. Manavshach. Ishari, if it's permitted, then the Kuli Alma Shari. It should be permitted to everyone. And he also, because of chasnas, then the Kuli Alma also, it should be forbidden to everybody. Says Gemara, El Rav Savar Mishum Giluya. Rav said that the problem of beer is because it's might have been left overnight. However, even if it was left overnight in the preparation, that the water of the beer was left overnight before they brewed it, but Rav is of the opinion, v'ozal meroira de kishusa, the bitterness of the haps come, v'kali leizihare, and burns out the venom. So then what's the problem with chia berei? What's the problem of chia berei? However, udeloki milkale tvei. But if somebody is sick, then the remnants of the venom will make him sicker. And therefore, Hayavalaki, since Chia, Rav's son, was ill, he shouldn't drink from it. Okay, Rabbi say, we're going to stop over here. What a beautiful two blocks to learn together. We're going to do now, and we did it in an hour, Rabbi say, Baruch Hashem. We're going to learn now the Mishnah Yomis of already the second parak of Zvachim. Remember, tomorrow night, we're on the last week of 5 to 9. Next week it's going to be earlier already. So, Yetz Hashem, it's getting earlier and earlier. We also want to remind you, we are looking for a sponsor for the share this week. 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. And now we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis.